Each of the four Gospels has their own distinct, unique, rich image of Jesus told through the stories, the encounters, the teachings, the sayings of Jesus. They each teach us something different about who Jesus is and what he did in his life, death, and resurrection. The Gospel of John uses the word water 24 times, wine 7, the word drink 13 times, and the word thirst 6 times. We can think of water as a theme throughout the Bible, whether it's the waters of creation, miracles done using water, the parting of the seas, water from the rock, whether it's prophetic images, there's a river that makes glad the city of God, water pouring out as representative of the Spirit and the blessing of God. Jesus picks up on lots of these images in his teaching in the Gospel of John. Speaks about how he can give living water that sustains and brings life within us. And then in John chapter 19, verses 28 to 29, we have today's saying from the cross. Later, knowing that everything had been finished, and so that scripture would be fulfilled, Jesus said, "I am thirsty." A jar of wine vinegar was there, so they soaked a sponge in it, put the sponge on a stalk of the hyssop plant, and lifted it to Jesus' lips. How can he who brings living water thirst? Why did Jesus have to die in such a torturous, public, shameful way? The clue's there in the text, so that scripture could be fulfilled. When we start to dig into scripture, on Sunday we looked particularly at Psalm 22 and Isaiah 53. We see so many references to the suffering of God's servant, to the suffering of the Messiah. That we see these descriptions that could only point to Jesus and his cross. And Jesus is aware of this. At this point, he thirsts so that scripture could be fulfilled. He asks for a drink so that scripture could be fulfilled. Some people have pointed to the reference in Psalm 22 of a dry tongue sticking to the roof of his mouth, or Psalm 69 where it says explicitly he was given bitter wine and gall for his thirst. Jesus fulfills all of the story of God, but also he fulfills all of what God has been doing through the law and the prophets. He is the ultimate sacrifice. He is the great high priest. He is the temple containing the presence of God. He is the ultimate sacrifice, the Passover lamb and the gift of atonement, the fellowship and thank offering, the one who brings peace and reconciliation. He is the fullness of all of that. So I wonder, as you read this passage and discuss in your discipleship group or maybe in your personal devotions, I wonder if you could maybe ask those questions of, where else do we see water imagery? And how is that relevant to understanding the person of Jesus? Where do we see imagery that points to the cross from the Old Testament? And how does Jesus fulfill the law? And maybe as we ask those questions, the implications for who Jesus is, what the cross means, and how we might follow him would come to us in a rich and beautiful way.